Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, January 29th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the states in the 2022 Senate elections that could be surprisingly competitive. Now, I know this is something that we don't really talk about because when we're looking at the 2022 map, there's a very clear region of the country where we are going to see a number of competitive races, two distinct regions in the United States, the Sun Belt and the Rust Belt, where we will probably see Senate control ultimately come down to just those few states. But looking at the 2020 Senate election results, we actually found that a number of Senate races that were previously characterized as safe or likely in the initial ratings ended up becoming surprisingly competitive. And that's exactly what could happen in 2022. Given that we have initial ratings for the 2022 Senate races, they're undoubtedly going to change. We have 2 years to see who's going to retire, who's going to run, and what's going to happen on the national level with President Biden. So that gives us a lot of time to speculate as to whether or not, certain states could be surprisingly competitive. Now, I'm not going to focus on all of the states that are normally characterized as swing states pertaining to the 2022 election. I think that this is something that is going to be a waste of time if we're talking about surprisingly competitive races, because I don't think it's too shocking to the average viewer that Georgia is going to have a competitive Senate race in the 2022 elections. But looking at some of these other races that were previously competitive, I think that it's possible that they return to being competitive in 2022 given the right circumstance, mainly for the Democratic Party in this scenario, because what we've seen so far is, these races are dominated by the Republican Party. I don't think there will be any races besides, I think maybe one state that could be considered surprisingly competitive on the Democratic side. So I'm going to characterize every single state by their current party composition, and then we're going to get into the states that I think are going to be surprisingly competitive. So I'm going to be using that term for quite some time now. I'm going to make sure that I characterize everything and don't miss anything. Okay, so 49. I might be missing a singular state. I'm not sure where it is. Florida. Okay, so this puts the Democrats at 37. They need to go ahead and characterize and win all of these races to retain the majority, but it's not out of the question that they end up getting some races that aren't exactly expected to go to the Democrats, or not necessarily that they could win them, just that they will be more competitive than traditionally expected. So, based off your map right now, we only have a certain number of states that we would characterize as competitive based off its initial ratings: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, Nevada. So that's pretty much it. New Hampshire. The Democrats have very few seats that I think could even be remotely competitive in a best-case scenario for the GOP. I think Colorado is probably the only race that isn't currently characterized as a swing state that could be surprisingly competitive. That's sort of a hint as to which Democratic state, not a hint, but literally just revealing which Democratic state I'm going to characterize as surprisingly competitive. We will get into why in just a moment, but we'll focus on the Republican states that could be surprisingly competitive, because I really don't think that unless you are too super well versed in the 2016 election results, well, you probably wouldn't expect some of these states to be competitive in 2022, because in 2020, the surprisingly competitive states weren't exactly the ones that many people expected. They were Kansas, they were South Carolina, they were Alabama. That's not the case in this map. None of those three states are going to be characterized in yellow by the end of the video, because Democrats don't necessarily have the perfect opportunity to pick up a race here. There isn't an open seat. There isn't a Democratic incumbent in Alabama. There isn't a fundraising, super powerful fundraiser in the South Carolina Senate race. So looking at the 2022 Senate elections, I think that we probably could go back to the previously competitive 2016 Senate election positions, which actually, don't exactly outline a super safe Republican map that some people might expect from some of these states. So the first state we're going to take a look at is actually not too surprising. It's the state of Iowa. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surprisingly competitive. Is it too surprising that Iowa is competitive? And I do think so. I do think that it is surprising that Iowa, out of all the states, is competitive just because of how, overwhelmingly it voted for Chuck Grassley in previous elections. I mean, Chuck Grassley has been in an elected position in Iowa for a third of the state's existence. He is a very long-term senator, very long-term state legislator in the state of Iowa. He's a well-known name. And he won back in 2016 with 60% of the vote. Patty Judge got 35.7%. She won just one county. Chuck Grassley is loved in the state of Iowa, and if he chooses not to run, I think this state could be surprisingly competitive, and I think Democrats are actually counting on, the possibility that Chuck Grassley does not decide to run in this race, because he hasn't announced officially. If you're looking at his age, Democrats look at it and say maybe he could end up retiring because he's currently 87 years old. Once he leaves office, add 6 years, you're up to 93. And, in the best case, by the time he leaves office. So I would say Democrats might be expecting Chuck Grassley to retire in Iowa. He's been in for 40 years in the United States Senate since 1981. So Democrats definitely, could end up with a somewhat competitive Senate race here that nobody would have expected because Chuck Grassley is the, go-to easy win for the GOP. But if he chooses not to run, well, then that could open up possibilities for Democrats. But I do think Republicans will start out with the immediate advantage in all of these states that I'm going to characterize besides the Democratic one. So the next state is actually a state that also, comes from a similar region, a number of rural areas, a state that was competitive for Obama, but not competitive for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump, for Joe Biden. And that is the state of Missouri. Now, I know what you're thinking. Missouri, really, could it be competitive in 2022? And I think in a scenario where Democrats were able to get a candidate such as Jason Kander, as looking at his 2016 election performance, it was actually a pretty substantial victory. Had Donald Trump not been on the ballot in 2016, Jason Kander would have undoubtedly been the next United States Senator from the state of Missouri. He was a statewide official. He was someone who was liked by voters. Donald Trump won in this state by 20 points. Jason Kander lost by 3. Roy Blunt, the senator here, who was also the incumbent senator in 2010 when he won his election back then, he won by a pretty considerable amount. In 2016, fast forward, well, Jason Kander comes within 3 points. Donald Trump won by 20, Roy Blunt by 3. So what could happen in 2022? Well, it doesn't look like Jason Kander is going to end up running for Senate here. He did not decline, pretty much, said that he's not going to run for Senate in Missouri, but it's possible. And I think that if Democrats can capture someone with his essence and capture someone who is a statewide official, previously popular, whatever it might be, I think that Democrats definitely could be in to give Roy Blunt a run for his money in 2022, even if it may be a Republican wave year. I think that Jason Kander, or someone with a very similar aura, very similar campaign style, someone who's statewide, popular, a Democrat, I think it's possible that Missouri ends up being a surprisingly competitive race that we are initially discounting and counting out for Democrats because of its very solid Republican nature. So that goes into the second state that I would consider to be surprisingly competitive. The next state is actually a state that is similar to Iowa and Missouri, competitive for Obama, went to Obama in 2008, but did not go to him in 2012. Can you guess the state? It's not North Carolina. That wouldn't be a surprise. It's actually Indiana. So Indiana, I would say, is the next state that I would characterize as surprisingly competitive. When you're looking at the election results in previous years, in 2016, it was pretty competitive. I believe this is Evan Bay, Evan Bay. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name. I used to be able to, but I haven't talked about him since early in my channel. I think I made an election prediction with him versus Donald Trump. But he had a competitive race in 2016. He was a Democrat who had previously held this exact same Senate race, and he actually started out with an advantage over Todd Young in the preliminary election data. What happened was, he was a replacement. He was put in as a result of the Democrat the Democrat dropping out. So they had to replace him after the primary had already occurred. He was a congressman, so they had to completely change up the campaign strategy right after the primary up in mid-July when the campaign had already been underway. So Todd Young pretty much had the advantage, but I guess the Democrats here were counting on a narrow victory between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Some people thought that this state could return to being competitive. No one really expected Indiana to vote more for Donald Trump than it did for Mitt Romney. There was something that threw a lot of people off guard. By the end of the campaign season, the Republicans had taken ahead in the Senate race. Nobody really expected the Democrats to win here because Donald Trump was overwhelmingly campaigning for Republicans down the ballot and doing very well. He had a very strong performance in Indiana, and Todd Young ended up winning this Senate race, So 2022, it's possible the Democrats can get someone who can make this race competitive. Pete Buttigieg is not going to run. Joe Hogsett is not going to run either. But let's say the Democrats find someone. I think that this race could be surprisingly competitive in 2022 compared to others. It wouldn't be, but this state has a history of actually being pretty okay for Democrats. At some point in time in the 21st century, they had 2 Democratic senators. So just want to point that out. Indiana could be a state that could be surprisingly competitive. And the final state that has a Republican incumbent is the state of Alaska. A state that's not part of the continental United States. This state could very well be competitive. I think, without a doubt, the Democrats are going to try to do everything they can to either ensure Lisa Murkowski wins again, or they get a Democrat in the top 2 and make Trump-like Republicans decide between whether or not they want Lisa Murkowski or whether or not they want a Democrat who they could end up beating in the future. Because Murkowski is someone who has won in this Senate race without a majority. She was a write-in candidate in 2010 and still won the Senate race. Think about that. Trying to run a write-in campaign when there's a Republican and a Democrat on the ballot. She lost the primary to Joe Miller. She said, I don't care. I want to run again. I will not run again. I want to run for this Senate race. So what happened was, she lost the primary. She went on to be the write-in candidate. And as a result, she ended up winning. She won with 39.5% of the vote. Joe Miller returns in 2016. He runs against her as a libertarian. She receives just 44.36% of the vote. So she's won by a plurality for quite some time now. Now that ranked choice voting has now been implemented, it's possible the Democrats do something where they could get Lisa Murkowski and a Democrat in top 2 and force those very hard right conservatives, while they may not be super inclined to vote for Democrats, and I think it's a far-fetched idea, but still possible. I think some people might think, a Democrat would be easier to beat in Alaska versus Lisa Murkowski, who has had a very strong history. Even though she's never won by a majority, her plurality strength is something that cannot be denied. Because as long as there's going to be a Democrat, a libertarian, an independent on the ballot, I think that will break away from anyone who tries to run against Lisa Murkowski, even if she loses the Republican primary. So looking at the rating so far, it's characterized as solid for the GOP, and also we have the possibility that Lisa Murkowski decides to leave the GOP. That's something that has been in discussion because she said if the Republican Party continues to be the party of Trump, and given that Kevin McCarthy just recently, just 2 days ago, or yesterday actually, met with Donald Trump, Lisa Murkowski could consider leaving the Alaska GOP, which I would find very abysmal for a lot of these Senate Republicans, because if she leaves, she can join as an independent who caucuses with the Democratic Party. So I think Alaska is the state that I would characterize as surprisingly competitive. And now we've covered all of the states that are currently held by Republicans. But the good thing for Democrats is they only have one race that I think could be surprisingly competitive, because the rest of the states are safe, and the rest of them are either characterized as swing or safe. There won't be a surprise in California. That just won't happen. Looking at the one state that I've yet to characterize as a swing state, but normally characterized as a safe state, is the state of Colorado. This is a state that I think could be surprisingly competitive. Let's flash back to 2016 to take a look at that Senate election result. Michael Bennet is the incumbent here. He won in 2010. He won by just 6 points in 2016. In 2010, he won by just 2 points. So in 2004, that's when he actually, this was his first, I guess he was the previous senator, so he won through a special election, if I'm not mistaken. But let's see. Let's go ahead and move forward to 2016. We don't need to focus on 2010. I recognize Andrew Romanoff's name, though. I guess he ran in a primary back in 2010. I did not know that. Very competitive. If you don't recognize his name, it's he ran in 2018 against John Hickenlooper. So he ran for Senate. He came pretty close in the primary. We can actually see those results, and then we'll flash back to 2010, 2016. Let's go ahead and find it. Okay, so Andrew Romanoff won the caucus, but then I guess not super narrowly, but compared to, against a previous popular Democratic governor, I would say pretty narrow victory for John Hickenlooper in the Senate runoff election. So let's go ahead and go through all of these tabs, make sure we reach the 2010 Senate election, but 2016. What we see here is the Democrats winning it by 6 points. Hillary Clinton won the state by 4.9%, so a narrow improvement for Senate Democrats because Michael Bennet was just someone who outperformed Hillary Clinton. Many Democrats did, but also some states, it was the complete opposite. But in 2022, we are expecting this race to be solid for the GOP. Nobody's expecting any prominent members of the Republican Party to even be competitive in this race. I mean, the only potential candidates, we're talking a state senator, a former U.S. Air Force lieutenant colonel, and nominee for Senate in 2016. Minority leader of the Colorado House of Representatives, and then the Weld County Sheriff. So the rest of them have decided that they're not going to run. Ken Buck ran in 2010 and lost. Governor of Colorado, Bill Owens, not running. So 2022, while Republicans might try to hype this up as a Republican wave year, it doesn't look as if the GOP is heavily targeting Colorado, but neither are the Democrats in Indiana, Missouri, Alaska, and Iowa for as far as we can see. But I think that that's why it would be a surprise if it ended up being competitive. We could see, depending on who the Republicans or Democrats try to run in these races, that these 5 states can end up being those surprisingly competitive states. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.